There is no marker for the grave of Ebenezer Bancroft IV, but the Woodlawn Cemetery records say that he is buried in Range 18, Lot 56. This is the grassy area between the Cady family stone at Lot 52 and the Reft-Hewen Holt family stone and the large Barnes family stone at lots 59 and 60. Ebenezer IV was the only son of Ebenezer Bancroft III and Jane Redfield. He and his twin sister were born in 1846 in Tyngsboro, Massachusetts. The Bancrofts were one of the early settlers of Dunstable, Massachusetts, which was incorporated in 1673 and was comprised of 200 square miles, reaching from present-day Londonderry, New Hampshire to Chelmsford, Massachusetts. In the 1700s, the town was broken into 15 communities. Ebenezer III was probably named after his grandfather, Ebenezer Bancroft, who served in the War of Independence and attained the rank of lieutenant colonel. Ebenezer Sr. was living in that part of Dunstable, which became Tyngsboro, in 1809. He had been involved in his community and had served as a selectman in 1768 until there was a motion in March 1871 to dismiss him as selectman and assessor for the town. In 1872, he was serving as a warden and highway supervisor to the town. And then he served as a selectman and assessor again from 1773 to 1774. In 1775, Ebenezer was the town clerk, serving on a committee to examine the state of the town treasury and serving on a committee to divide the town into school districts. On April 12, 1775, the town voted to assess 20 pounds to the encouragement and use of the Minutemen and to hold themselves ready to march at the first notice. That notice wasn't long in coming. On April 19th, news arrived that there had been fighting in Lexington and Concord. The battles were done before the men from Dunstable could respond. But they were present for the Battle of Bunker Hill. Ebenezer Bancroft served as a captain under Colonel Ebenezer Bridge. Ebenezer Sr. was a veteran of the French and Indian War, and upon finding himself surrounded by British soldiers during the battle, he used his musket and club and knocked down several British soldiers. He lost his musket in a fight, and the forefinger of his right hand was shot off, but he continued to serve in the War of Independence. Ebenezer Jr. was born in 1778 and spent his life farming the land in Tyngsboro. He married Hannah Town in 1804 in Washington, New Hampshire, and their son Ebenezer III was born in 1807 in Tyngsboro, Massachusetts. Ebenezer III married Jane Kaiser in 1835 in Portland, Maine, and they occupied the house Ebenezer Sr. had purchased from Henry Farwell in Tyngsboro. In 1870, the farm was worth $5,500 and about $2,000 worth of personal items. He was wealthier than most of his neighbor. Ebenezer IV was 24 years old when he married the 18-year-old Caroline Nichols in 1871 in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Their first known child was born in Tyngsboro in 1873, but Minnie Bancroft died as a child. And their second daughter, Lily Bancroft, was born in 1878 in Tyngsboro and died in February of 1880 of congestion of the brain in Nashua, New Hampshire. Perhaps this is what caused the family to separate. In the 1880 census, Ebenezer was living with his parents without Caroline. But whatever the reason for the separation, they got back together, and their third and last child, Ebenezer Luther Bancroft, was born on January 1st, 1882 in Nashua. Ebenezer IV had been working for the railroad for about 4 years when on February 10th, 1891, he was working with a crew of 6 men and riding on the front footboard of the engine as it pulled off of Hall Street and onto the Walnut Street siding. A baker driving a sleigh attempted to cross in front of the train, and one of the crewmen called "Whoa." The engineer immediately worked to stop the train, but it took 60 feet. The engineer said, "I saw a horse and the front part of a baker's sleigh. The sleigh was broken in half and the baker was lying on the road." Bancroft was asked to help move the engine back so that the wreck of the sleigh could be moved away. The engineer noticed he hesitated and saw he was looking pale, asked him if he was hurt, and Ebenezer said, "Not much." The engineer reported he was a man of very few words and said he was squeezed, but thought he was not badly hurt. The accident had happened in the afternoon, and Ebenezer IV died the following morning about 9 a.m. An autopsy showed that the lining of his valves was torn, and the walls of the stomach were badly injured. The doctor concluded that the injuries were undoubtedly the cause of his death. Ebenezer's family filed a case against the Boston and Maine Railroad for causing his death, but the court ruled Ebenezer was entirely familiar with all the dangers and needed no warning. He assumed his own risk and was responsible for the loss of his life. On June 22nd of 1891, Ebenezer III wrote his will. His son had died in February of that year, and the will stated that his grandson, Ebenezer Luther Bancroft, was to receive the heirloom Bancroft cane. After leaving a gold watch to his daughter Sarah E. Brown and a dollar to his daughter Hannah Jane Bills, his grandson Frederick A. Brown was to hold the remainder of the estate in trust for the use of Ebenezer's widow, Jane Redfield Bancroft, until her death or remarriage, and then the estate was to be divided 1/8 to grandson Charles Edwin Drake, 1/8 to grandson Ebenezer Luther Bancroft, and the remaining 3/4 to daughter Sarah E. Brown. Looks like Ebenezer III was not happy with his daughter, Hannah Jane Bills. Ebenezer IV's 38-year-old widow, Carolyn, moved to Wilmington, Massachusetts, where she was keeping house. She met George Ames, a 54-year-old farmer living in Wilmington, and she did what most widows with young children did. She married again. George and Carolyn were married on January 28, 1892 in Wilmington, Massachusetts, providing Ebenezer IV's 10-year-old son with a stepfather to help raise and care for him.